Good morning, world. Dear world friends, everything starts with love. We decide that everything starts from love. The preparation for this event, we married it called lesson preparation mode. Prepared for it for a whole week. And you know what? I'm not just saying these words on behalf of the 10. We truly did cover everything with love. All kinds of disagreements, imaginary dealings, we covered it all with love. And you see before you 10, that is entirely full here sitting before you and the head of the upcoming Congress. We are calling on you to cover everything with love. Nothing is meaningless. It's all nonsense. The important thing is when your friend places his hand on your shoulder and when the song plays and the heart opens, then everything happens. As I heard once from Ra, it's so simple to open the Creator for us, to open the heart for us. I want to read from Rav's words, who said, and gave us the following advice. It's written in the book of Soul that serving the Creator cannot be if not out of joy. It cannot be without joy. It's a precondition. How can we not be glad? Because the Creator awakened us, and there's great joy. He assembled us. Hundreds, thousands of people brought us closer to Him. So let's think about it before the Congress and give the friends love and joy. We truly believe it, because we've been through this process of preparation this week, and we covered everything with love. We love you. Letter 47. I have established for you conducts by which you can still hang on and not turn back, and the single most special one among them is the adhesion of friends. I sincerely promise that this love is able, and I shall remind you of every good thing that you need, and if you nonetheless braced yourselves in that, you would certainly go from strength to strength on the rungs of holiness, as I have promised earlier. Letter 47. Let me remind you of the validity of love of friends in spite of everything at this time. For it is upon that our right to exist depends, and upon this our new to come success is measured. Hence turn away from all the imaginary engagements and set your hearts on thinking thoughts and devising proper tactics to truly connect your hearts as one, so the words love your friend as yourself will literally come true in you. Letter 10 is let me remind you of the validity of love of friends in spite of everything. I'm sorry, do what you can, and the salvation of the Lord is as the blink of an eye. The most important thing before you today is the unity of friends, exerting that more and more it can recompense for all the faults. Active workshop. What can we achieve through the connection between us? Active workshop. What can we achieve through the connection between us? The connection between us is the place where we can work and feel what it means to connect with the Creator. The quality of bestow. They give us an opportunity in this world, together with the friends, to come closer to the feeling of love the Creator wants to give us through connection, and connection is a great weapon. Everything can be attained, it is said. Even the connection of the wicked. It's bad for them and bad for the world, but through the connection of the righteous is all you can attain the life of lives. It's a very great range. Yeah, we have the goal of attaining the Creator, cleaving to Him, and the vessel is love of friends, connection with friends. And what can be attained is true life in the quality of bestow and love with the Creator. Yeah, connection is the force that enliven creation. It's the force of creation. It seems that eventually we'll attain the pleasure for life. Yes, and the connection between us is a vessel for the Creator, a vessel for the soul. Silent workshop. Let's ask the Creator to connect us in this lesson. Let's ask the Creator to connect us in this lesson. Hello friends, in the first part of the lesson, we will watch a recorded lesson from the 4th of May 2003, after which, rather this is the second part of a 3-part series on the article. Peace after a dispute is more important than having no disputes at all, which we will now read together in the tense, starting from the words it therefore follows that the real reason. It therefore follows that the real reason. We will end with when it hears these words it immediately becomes angry. Again, we will end reading with the words when it hears these words it immediately becomes angry. Starting with it therefore follows that the real reason, and so on. If your 10 is done reading before the allotted time has elapsed, then start a workshop on the article. It therefore follows that the real reason that compels a person to observe Torah and commandments is that through the Torah and commandments he will award himself and exit from his ought coarseness or thickness, which is self-reception, and will receive vessels of bestow. These are the vessels that the Creator awaits, because specifically in vessels of pestle a person can receive delight and pleasure from kosher holiness. For this reason, a person who wants to walk on the path of truth must, before every act in Torah and in prayer and in good deeds, see that he has a real reason for which to engage in Torah and commandments. That is, the Torah and commandments should give him the purpose for which he is working and doing what he can to obtain it. However, as there is work in observing the commandments whether or not to do good deeds, meaning that there is choice there, we should know that the work of choice is harder on the intention, since the intention is man's work, as in quote, you are called man and not the nations of the world, end quote. We interpreted that a man is one who bestows, which is mar in Gematria called male, meaning a giver bestower. But a beast is called female, and a beast is born in Gematria, which is a receiver. It follows that when he is in the action and does not consider the intention, he is observing Torah and commandments for beastly reasons. That is the reward he expects to receive. For his work is reception, called a beast and not a man. As the source says about the verse, quote, the grace of the nations is a sin, all the good that they do for themselves, end quote. This means that in terms of the work, this work is regarded as receiving reward into what is regarded as man's nations of the world. Although it is also difficult to engage in Torah and commandments in action, it is regarded as lishmer, not for her sake, which is for his own sake. However, we should know that this is the first degree, and we must begin from there, and that there is no other way, as the Ramban said. This is already regarded as man. It's not a beast. And when we say that they are the nations of the world, it is none less the nations of the world in man, the beast in the man. Conversely, those who have no connection even to the action are called a nation that is similar to a donkey. For this reason, we should know that the degree of lishma is a very important degree, and we haven't the intellect to appreciate the importance of Torah commandments lishma, not for her sake. Balaam said that as much as one may appreciate the work lishma, which is important work, he should know that lishma is more important than the importance that a person attributes to lishma. Since one cannot properly assess the importance of observing Torah and commandments, even lishma, although observing Torah and commandments should be lishma, it therefore follows that although the real reason for observing and mitzvot should be to be rewarded with vessels of bestow, that it is specifically in those vessels that the Creator has the ability to give the upper abundance, since the Creator wants the creatures to feel only pleasure and no shame upon the reception of the abundance. For this reason, he awaits our work in Torah and mitzvot with the intention to thereby be rewarded with vessels of bestow. However, the beginning of the work is specifically in action. At that time, we need not think and scrutinize which reward we hope to receive from the Creator in return for our work. Instead, he observes and mitzvot only because he's following the Creator's orders. This is called satisfactory work for the general public. That is, they should not think at all about the intention, but all their thoughts will be about observing and mitzvot in action. Certainly, there's the matter of choice here and the war of the evil inclination. That is impossible to observe mitzvot, even in lishma. Indeed, his reward was great indeed, as Bilab said, that the lishma is very important in the eyes of the Creator, since keeping Torah and even in action requires great efforts, and a person must relinquish corporeal things in order to be able to observe what the Creator has commanded. Still, true work begins when a person wants to scrutinize the intention of lishma, meaning that he wants to work in order to not receive reward in the work on intention, which is the real reason for observing and mitzvot. Here begins the real division between good and bad. When a person wants to work for the Creator, since the Creator is called the good who does good, who is the giver the body called evil comes and obstructs him, says the will to receive for oneself is called bad because the quality of judgment is on it, because there was a judgment and restriction that it should remain in the dark and is unfit to receive any light, since man is born by nature with a desire to receive and must work against nature. Here lies the real dispute. It is so much so that one cannot defeat and subdue his will to receive and be able to work for the Creator and not for his own sake. Here we can say that they are called two things that deny one another. The rule to receive is the complete opposite of the rule to bestow, and then comes the third party, the third force, and decides between them, meaning until the Creator comes and makes peace between them. In other words, the Creator gives him a gift, the desire to bestow, and opposite the giving of the Creator, the evil surrenders, bringing the above receiver under man's good. In other words, we learn that there are two forces in the body, two kinds of desire, but the desire to bestow begins to work in a person only when he wishes to begin the work on the intention, but in the work of the general public, it is still not apparent that there are a desire and a need in the body to aim, to bestow, and to say about it that the will to receive resists, since there is still no one to resist. Rather specifically, when a person begins to work in order to bestow and contemplates whether he wants to work in order to bestow, it is up to him, meaning it depends only on his will. But when he begins to work, he sees that he is not the landlord who can do whatever he wants, but that he has another view with him, meaning the will to receive objects. In that state, we feel the hardest work. This is even harder than the work of choice that a person needs to place on the act of commandments, since he wants to do truly clean work for the sake of the Creator, as was said, that he wants to do the work of holiness, which is in order to be stoned. At that time begins the real dispute between good and bad. In terms of action, it was still not clear to the body that it wanted to walk on the path of not receiving anything for itself, but that everything will be for the Creator. It thought that everything would be for the receiver. And since there are two forces within man, and the will to receive comes to a person as soon as he is born, as it is written in the Zohar quote, an old and foolish king. A king is the evil inclination, who is called a king and a ruler in the world of men. He is old and foolish, since he is with man from the day one is born into the world. For this reason, he is an old and foolish king. End quote. It is also written there, quote, for this reason the evil inclination immediately connects itself to man from the day he is born, so he will believe him. Later, when the good inclination comes, man will not be able. Later, when the good inclination comes, man will not be able to believe it, and its words will seem burdensome to him. End quote. And it is also written, the quote, because the evil inclination comes first and makes its arguments before him. Later, when the good inclination comes, it will be bad for man to be with it, and he will not be able to raise his head, as though he has been burdened with all the burdens in the world. End quote. We therefore see that there are two forces within man, but the bad force is stronger, because it comes with its arguments that one must tend to one's own benefit. Hence its governance is stronger, since it comes before the good inclination. This is called, quote, in a quarrel the first one is right, end quote. As it is written there, quote, for this reason, any judge who accepts the words of the litigator before his colleague arrives is like one who takes upon himself another god to believe in. End quote. It is also written there, but a righteous who fears his master, how much evil does he suffer in this world, so as to not believe or partake with the evil inclination, but the Creator saves him from all of them. As it is written, many are the ills of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him from them all. This one who suffers many ills is righteous, because the Creator wants him, and this is so because the ills he suffers remove him from the evil inclination. For this reason, the Creator wants that person and delivers him from them all. According to the words of the Zohar, when does the Creator save a person? Only when he suffers many evils. Afterwards, the Creator comes and saves him. This is perplexing. Why should a person suffer many troubles, and then the Creator helps him? Why should the Creator mind if he saves the righteous before he suffers many evils? The answer is that it is known that there is no light without a clear data vessel, and a vessel is called a need. If a person is given something he does not need, he will not keep it and will lose it. Therefore, when a person begins to work on the intention to bestow, which is against nature, the body resists this because it is the opposite of its quality. At that time, the dispute is between the two things, the two beings. Since the receiver comes to the person first, and in a quarrel the first one is right, therefore its covenance is very strong, and to the extent of the effort a person makes in order to defeat himself, receiver, but he's unable to do so, he therefore feels very bad, and each time he overcomes and thinks that he's winning and the receiver has surrendered, because he can see the losses that the receiver is causing him troubles by not letting him aim for the Creator, and now he sees the truth. All of a sudden he falls into its net once more, and he does not even feel when he departed from holiness into a state of loneliness. But after some time he realizes that he is in the domain of the receiver for himself with all of its loneliness. Finally, a person is bewildered how such a thing can be. That is, it is known that everything deteriorates gradually. But here he sees that while he felt that now he was at the top of the world, suddenly he sees that he's at the bottom of the pit, and there were no stops in between, and he realizes that he has fallen not in the middle of the fall, but when he's already lying on the ground. Only then he regains consciousness, and he sees that he's on the ground. Also, there's no fixed interval between the fall and the realization that he has fallen, and we should understand why this is so, for it seems that such is the order of the work. The thing is that through the ascents and descents a great need for the salvation of the Creator forms in him. This is the meaning of the verse. Many are the afflictions of the righteous. That is one who wishes to be righteous, and it is known that righteous is the quality of means a giver. That is one who wishes to work in order to bestow, is regarded as wanting to be righteous. He suffers many afflictions, meaning many descents, and each descent causes him pain and sorrow for being under the control of the receiver, and according to the many evils that he feels, a need forms in him called a kli, a vessel for the Creator to help him and save him. Since he sees that there is no way out of that governance, and only the Creator can help him, it follows that through the suffering he suffers, these evils give him the need called a vessel for the Creator to give him the filling for this lack. But before he suffers from his inability to work in order to bestow, if the Creator gives him some illumination that reforms him, he will not appreciate it, because he has no need for it. Although he asked to be given the desire to bestow, he immediately regrets it, because the need for it has not been carved within his heart. And this is the answer to why the Creator does not help him as soon as he prays, and especially when he has prayed to the Creator several times and the Creator did not hear his prayer. A person becomes angry with the Creator. Sometimes thoughts come to a person that he has grievances, and he says, if I were to ask the Creator to help me for my own sake, I could understand that I'm still not worthy of the Creator hearing me. But when I ask the Creator, because I want him to help, because I want to work for his sake, for the sake of the Creator, why does he not want to help me? And for this reason, a person escapes the work. And now we will explain the question that we asked. It stands to reason that where there is no dispute, that place is more important than a place where there is a dispute. Although afterwards someone gets involved in the matter and makes peace between them, we must say that it would certainly have been better if there was no dispute and they would not have had to make peace. In the order of the work, we see otherwise. Our sages said, quote, one should always anger the good inclination over the evil inclination. As it was said, be angry, but do not sin. End quote. And Rashu interprets anger the good inclination, end quote, to mean that he should make war with the evil inclination. This means that although there is peace there and that evil inclination does not obstruct his engagement in Torah and commandments, still one should make war with it. And we should also ask if it does not disturb him from engaging in commandments, why is it called evil inclination? And moreover, we need to anger it. Why Do we need to anger it if the evil inclination does not harm him in the work? We should interpret simply that he is accustomed by upbringing to engage in commandments in all its details, and he has nothing to add to the actions, but according to the order of the correction of creation a person should correct the receiver for himself, to work in order to bestow. For this reason, when a person begins to think about the intention, meaning when he begins to organize for himself prior to making the commandments for which reason he's going to perform the commandments, and he comes to the true intention, meaning that the Torah and commandments were given in order to cleanse people, so that from this day onward he hopes that, by the merits of Torah commandments, he will not give to his receiver anything. For this he should anchor it. He tells the body to work and observe Torah and commandments, and that its reward for its work will be that he will not give it anything unlike how it was thus far, when all his thoughts were only about how to please his receiver. And now he says to the receiver, I ask you to engage in Torah and commandments with a new aim, meaning that I will not give you anything. Would this not anger the evil inclination? Is right. Whom ever heard of such a thing? It is insolent to tell a person, I want you to work for me, and I will give the reward for your work to another. Moreover, I will give the reward that you deserve for the work to a person who hates you. Our sages said about this, one should always anger the good inclination over the evil inclination. It is as it is written in the Zohar that the Creator hates the bodies. Still, a person angering the evil inclination does not make sense. After all, it did not do him any harm. So why anger him? King Solomon called the evil inclination enemy. As it is written, if your enemy is hungry, feed him bread. We should understand what this come to teach us. Normally, when someone has a bad neighbor whom he hates, it is normal for an enemy and a bad person to do harm to the neighbors. But sometimes a person meets someone and asks him, where do you live? He tells him, in a house of so and so, we're only 2 neighbors. And he asks, how are you getting along with your neighbor, since I heard that he is a very bad man? And he replies, I don't know about this, because he's never done me any harm. So he tells him, how can this be? And he asks some more, how do you behave with him? So he tells him, each day, before I leave the house, I ask him what he needs. Even what he does not tell me, I also understand that he needs it. Likewise, with other things, before he asks me, I immediately do his wish. So he replies to him, now I understand that he is a really bad man, but he has no reason to harm you, because he's afraid that he might lose the services that you give him. Try not to serve him, and you will see the evil that in truth he hates you, but he doesn't want to lose the service you are giving him. The lesson is that when everything we do, whether in anvot or corporal matters, is for the sake of the receiver, it does not reveal its evil, only when we tell it, thus far I've been working for you. Henceforth, I want to work in order to bestow upon the Creator. They also want you to work for the holiness and not for the impurity. When it hears these words, it immediately becomes angry. The general rule of reality, well, it seems to work in every aspect of reality, that there is no light without a vessel. No light without a vessel. You simply need to build up a need. The other thing I wrote down is he talked about awareness. When a person falls, but nothing comes of his fall, if he doesn't become aware of his fall, this entire process that the Creator passes us through doesn't do anything without our awareness, and he's just building our awareness to whatever is happening to us. And the last thing I wrote is it's about the dispute. He says about the dispute. If there wasn't a dispute, then there's no need to make peace. So why all the trouble? And so it turns out that the connection, this conscious connection, has to come from a state of conflict where a person can demand peace above the conflict. This is also an interesting point. You need resistance, conflict for the need for connection. Yeah. And the starting point is when we do the work with intention. What is our intention? That is the main question in our work. Yes, I suppose that our path is as he says, there's no light without a vessel, and therefore we have the right side, the left light. We have the good inclination, the evil inclination, and we need to learn to anger the evil inclination through the good. We'll go to a lesson from May 4th, 2003. The article peace after dispute is more important than peace before dispute. We started it in around the middle and also we finished reading before the end. It's about page 40,025. Let's say there is an upper force. One unique, unified, eternal, the only thing that exists. And he created, made, crafted something. That feels it, feels him, that thing. That feels him. It's called a vessel. So created being, what the vessel feels. It feels only that which surrounds it, and fulfills it. That singular upper force, that's what the vessel feels. And that feeling, it starts in the vessel. It begins as a simple sensation. The smallest sensation, the smallest impression. From the upper force, natural impression, meaning without any effort on behalf of the vessel. This small natural impression is called this world. And there is a plan in the upper force with respect to the vessel that he created. That this vessel will feel him to a certain measure called infinity. And this measure he created in the vessel in preparation. And he then develops the vessel to feel him on that degree level which is called infinity, which is to say the vessel develops sensitivity to the upper force. This development in the vessel is gradual, and it is called the world's all in all. 5 degrees of development. To begin with, the vessel feels itself to be in this upper force, as if without awareness in that upper force, like an embryo in his mother's womb. And that feeling, that sensation, we call this world, which is the lowest degree of the world of all in all. And later the vessel can develop sensitivity, additional sensitivity, whereupon he feels the upper force as the world of, and this impression, this excitement in the vessel, we would give it such names as, in total, what the vessel can feel is his quality, and how, through that quality, he attains, feels the upper force. That is all, and there is intelligence science. What does the vessel feel? How does the vessel feel the upper force acting upon it? If it's on the lowest degree, it's called the wisdom of this world or science of this world, which all in all we learn how the upper force acts upon the vessel without any change in the vessel's qualities on behalf of the vessel. And there is a method by which to change the qualities of the vessel to match the upper force, whereupon the vessel then begins to discover and feel the upper force more strongly. That method is called the wisdom of Kabbalah. And then the vessel, as it changes itself, it also learns what it feels. So the difference between the wisdom of this world and the wisdom of Kabbalah is that the wisdom of this world, that is, learning about the feeling of the upper force, but with no change in the qualities of the vessel to adapt it to the upper force without equivalence of form, as we call it. And if the vessel begins to work in equivalence of form with the upper force already, then this whole process of inner transformation, and also accordingly all that he feels and receives from the upper force, that all in all is called the wisdom of Kabbalah. And that is the difference. When can you say that a person has started learning the wisdom of Kabbalah? When he starts learning how to change himself in accordance with the upper force, and then, accordingly, to feel some reactions to his changes and how they should be. And these reactions are so odd that no science of this world that a person can learn, because the science of this world is the sensation of the upper force without the transformation of the qualities of their vessels. It therefore cannot help us to the wisdom of Kabbalah to feel the upper force through the change of the qualities of the vessels. And so the Kabbalists need to teach us things which it's actually bizarre if in our world there was such learning. You will open your mouth, you will take this thing, you need to feel in it. If you want to feel, you will feel sweet. You will feel it as being sweet. And if you want to feel it in that way, you will feel that it's bitter and such. Like it doesn't exist such a thing in our world. We exist in unchanging qualities, and therefore this degree is called the degree of the still, the inanimate, and so person does not need to be taught what to feel. Each and every quality in him feels senses according to the measure of impression and the impression itself. Whereas in spirituality, when he starts changing his qualities, Then you need to know how to change them and how, in accordance with those changes, he's going to feel exactly what he's going to feel. And with this awareness of spirituality, of course, there's also a natural matter. If he changed his qualities, then he feels change. He feels a different state called a different world. He feels that he is in a different state than previously. His world, which is to say his impressions, his inner sensations, internally his awareness, it all changes consciousness. He feels that he's in something completely different, but he needs to be taught where he is. Like a baby, you teach him about the world that surrounds him, and so it is with the person who seemingly changed his senses by himself. But, of course, it's through the upper force, but done by his exertion. Still in that image where he begins to feel with his changed, transformed senses. He feels this new image which is odd, and he needs to be explained what that is. Explained to what that is. And then he discovers in the books not only the method by which to change himself, but also the explanation regarding what he's now feeling, at what place he entered, like a person who, let's say, falls into happens upon some secluded island. Suddenly he awakens. He doesn't know where he is, what happens, where he was. He barely remembers, can barely describe where he is now, completely doesn't understand. The wisdom of Kabbalah teaches us not only about the changing of these qualities and how to change them, but also teaches us how to recognize our impression each time, meaning the world in which we are, each time accordingly, which is to say, the lights filling those vessels. What are they? Those lights, and gives a person each time a stable foundation regarding what the world that person is in is, meaning what degree it is that the person is in. What are the causes of it? What are its outcomes, ramifications, and how he can advance onwards? And if a person can advance, or rather if a person can exist in a natural way in this world, it's impossible in the spiritual world, because man's nature is opposite to the nature of the spiritual world, and he doesn't know exactly how to behave each time. Each time, their necessary behavior is weird, opposite, not understood by the person in a natural way, but rather, he needs to really learn from the books, to learn from above, to receive guidance on how to behave in this new world from the upper above, father and mother, the spiritual ones, similar to the corporeal father and mother, and how they teach him how to behave in this world. But in this world, well, somehow he's taught according to what he can understand, while the spiritual father and mother have to always explain to him the opposite of what he currently understands. And these things are opposite and weird. And it turns out that all of our wisdoms, they're good for this world, for the degree within the world of all the wisdoms above that. They are called the wisdom of Kabbalah. And we who are in this world, learning about the behavior of the world of the vessel rather on a higher world, meaning we learn the wisdom of Kabbalah to the extent that we can learn it in our degree. Then of course the study seems odd, and we read the articles and the counsel of the Kabbalists to change the qualities of the vessels, which it seems to us completely unrealistic, as if they cannot be applied. These things seem to us completely imaginary, naive, some kind of, we accept it, we learn it somehow, we hear it, but alongside that, there's a missing feeling of realness, actuality, that it can actually come true, that it can actually settle in a healthy mind, in a person's qualities and senses, if the person is standing on firm ground, right? So therefore we have difficulties in applying them, not only a natural difficulty, emotional, but also an intellectual difficulty. These things do not appear to us as applicable. That's what he's constantly explaining. That this division from which we need to act, from which we need to change our qualities, where each time the change of qualities goes against nature, against reasons, they are the wisdom of Kabbalah. Any more questions? What? You said that you need to change our qualities. You said we need to change our qualities. What's the difference between qualities and character? Nature ones. Nature. Where to discover what other qualities that we can change, and then accordingly Feel the upper force that we're inside, as changing, different, corresponding with our qualities, meaning. Is there something in us that can change? And if so, what is that? How do I distinguish? How do I find something in me that if I change that thing, if I change my sensation, that I'm in some kind of external force, something external to me, an upper force, surrounding me, filling me, eternal, perfect, that I will feel, that I'm inside of it, that I'm with it, and so feel a different world, right? My picture, my perception of reality, that is called my world. It is said that the transformation that needs to occur in me is the formation of a new quality, matching that upper force. If to a certain degree I will become like him, to that degree I will feel like him. If I increase that quality to be like him, then I will feel more that I'm like him, and so on. It's all simple. The problem is just in how to acquire that quality. Being like him, that is all. That is what the wisdom of Kabbalah teaches us. Because the wisdom of Kabbalah, it's a science, where people who knew the upper force, who got to know the upper force, they tell us what here is, who he is, so that from that, we will know perhaps we can resemble him, and then we will feel like him, we will feel him, oh, we'll feel ourselves like him. It's one and the same, and if I acquire everything, I can all his entire measure, according to my ability. This means that I will correct my entire vessel according to him. Let's say I have an ability. I have a wallet, and if I decide I can use all the money in the wallet to acquire his quality, if I come to such a decision that not I shouldn't acquire a little, but I should acquire his entire quality, according to how much money I have in the wallet. If I do it then according to my entire ability, I become like him, and then I don't feel that anything is left of the I that preceded it. Kabbalists say that this is the best possible thing, although we don't understand it, but it's good. Why good? You can't explain it before you feel it. There's a certain feeling they call wholeness, eternity. We feel neither in our world, meaning in our current sensation, hence what they say. Okay, just imagine whatever you want about this, but it will remain like that, just abstract, words without feeling. Why is it called to change? You change. Change applies to something that exists. It's not something new. What is it called? What is it? What is it called? Change. It's called change and not a new acquisition. In truth, it is a new acquisition. We need to acquire the desire of the upper force. The desire of the upper force, both in size and scale and in form. But they call it change because these new qualities seemingly replace our qualities. They suppress our qualities because they are stronger, richer, than a person identifies with those and not with his natural bodily, beastly qualities. That's why we call it a change. But in truth, it's not a change, it's a new acquisition. Is this expressed externally in any way? The desire, acquiring a new desire. The desire is called a desire for the upper force. And the change in this desire, the quality of the desire has to be that. This is the desire that we use for something external toward the upper force that is aimed at me and not to me. The desire is new and the direction of the desire is new. These are not desires that I have. The desires that I have are relative to the fulfillments that I feel now in my life without the recognition of the upper force. The desire that I begin to acquire is already relative to this upper force, is above my desires. Its direction is also opposite than the direction of my desires. All of my desires are aimed at me for my sake. We call it in order to receive. The desire that I acquire is higher, greater than all of my desires, and it has to be aimed in the other direction toward the upper force. I acquire this new desire in its raw form, raw, totally raw. What does it mean? I acquire it in a very small way, meaning nevertheless, I acquired this desire, which is nevertheless greater than the desires of this world. But it's not enough. It's not sufficient. In order to begin to connect with the upper force and feel in it the upper force both in size and also in its content, its quality, I need to grow this desire in size and change its direction so it won't be aimed at me called lishma, but instead aimed at the upper force, called lishma. The moment I do it, meaning the level, the height of this direction of this force and in the direction of the minimal compatible ability with the upper force. I begin to feel the upper force not in this unconscious, we called this world rather consciously, which we call the world of the spiritual world of. You said that the Kabbalist no longer works according to bitter and sweet, but rather according to truth and falsehood. What is that transition of working according to truth and falsehood? Receiving a new quality is, I said, has to be in the quantity of the desire, have to grow the desire for the upper force, and also in changing this desire from me to him. The way I use the desire, in growing the desire, I can somehow grow it through some internal advertising, let's say, right marketing advertising, let's say, that I constantly convince myself, let's say internal convincing, but to change the direction. This for me relative to my state that I'm in. This is an unnatural change. It's the opposite of my nature. All of my desires are aimed at me for my sake, and that desire that I now acquire and grow, in addition to that, I have to change it to be the opposite of me. This thing is not clear to me, because all of my desires are aimed toward me. It's not within my power, in that case with what is in me, with this great desire, right outside of that, to change it to be the opposite for me, that the force that can change the direction of the desire also receive from above. It's called the light of Absak. It doesn't matter. It's a certain light that changes me, a force that corrects me, right? This change is revealed in me in such a way that I become, or I transition, let's say, from the scrutiny of bitter and sweet, because everything that is aimed at me is felt in me as sweet. All my senses work for now that I'm being in, absorbing, being, receiving the upper force within the framework of this world, and what's opposite from me is felt in me as bitter. If I can change the bitter to sweet, and the sweet to bitter, I can't change that. So how do I do it? I do it through another system that I develop it next to this emotional system, called the wash of the head of the puff, right with the screen. This system helps me change bitter to sweet, and sweet to bitter through a different scrutiny, altogether called true and false. And if I adhere to the scrutiny of true and false, then I can convince myself to a certain extent that what appears to me is sweet is truly bitter, and what is bitter is truly sweet, by introducing the truth into the bitter and the lie into the sweet. By that, if I grow this, the truth on top of the bitter, then the bitter doesn't appear bitter anymore. Rather, the truth is the one dominating it. If I introduce the lie to the sweet, then the sweet is not felt in me as sweet. Rather, the lie rejects and suppresses the sweet, and it's felt as evil. I change good and evil in me from bitter and sweet to true and false, and by that I'm already adhered to another scrutiny. This is called going above reason, above the feeling of bitter and sweet, to this discernment of true and false, a truth and a lie. And if I adhere to this, I can seemingly, because there are a lot of things I need the upper force to do here. It's not that I'm doing it by myself, as if I'm personally transferring things. But if I work in this way, I have certainly the ability to switch to a state that's opposite of where I was. And this means that I'm going to the next degree. This is called I've seen an upside down world. That is truly only according to, in short, it's the opposite of the previous state. The direction changes the desire's direction. The desire now begins to be aimed at the upper force, and to the extent of the size of the desire. Now that it's aimed at the upper force, it's okay. Now according to the size of the desire, the level, the intensity of this vector, to that extent I begin to feel like him, like this upper force, and accordingly, this feeling of mine, I can measure it, and I can say it's this is or, and so on and so forth. What are these truth and falsehood? Though I don't understand according to the development of desires, meaning how do I determine truth and false, and true and false, and or what is true, what is false? Maybe truth is soft and false is hard, or maybe it's heavy and light, or what are those qualities? Right, true and false, I don't know what it is. It's totally relative thing, right? You call it a and b. Whether I called true and false, two directions. One direction like the upper force toward giving, I call that the truth, and the direction that is aimed at me naturally, that was aimed into my will to receive, This is called false or a lie. That's it. It's just those are just two names to forget true and false, call it one and two. So the Kabbalist is constantly calculating. Certainly the Kabbalist has to constantly make these calculations, and the calculations have to be above his feeling. This means that the row of the is above the goof of the head is above the body. He first makes a calculation with the screen and rejecting the feeling only for the sake of identification, for the sake of adapting itself to the upper force, the extent that he can do and the action. So now what is that feeling of bestow if it's not reception for the self? What is giving? What is giving? Giving means resembling the upper force, being compatible with the upper force. He is to me and I am to him. I always learn what he's doing to me, and from that I learn what I need to do to him. I don't know what is it. I'm in outer space. I don't understand anything. I don't feel anything. I have to get an example because I truly don't know. Bitter, sweet, true, and false. It's something totally new. I have nothing from before. I rose above the level of this world, meaning all of my beastly senses are not working at this height, this altitude. They're not working. I came out into outer space. I have nothing there. I need to acquire new discernments. It's like an instrument that needs to be reset, recalibrated. You have to give it all these new discernments as a benchmark. So I take from the upper force all these discernments. It teaches me this is right, this is left, this is forward, this is backward, bitter, sweet, high, low, and so on so forth. I begin to acquire his qualities under his insights, understandings, his mind. Everything I acquire from him, and accordingly I control this desire in me. The desire itself is a raw. Then, so you ask what qualities are left. The qualities that are left are those that belong to beastliness, my body, where I have to behave with my body, accord to those bodily qualities. My human qualities completely disappear seemingly. I begin to relate to things like a human from the above the level of the beast. On the level of the beast, I remain like everyone else. I need to go to see a doctor, do all those things, watch after it. But from the degree of the beast and above it, where you start to have the human man Adam, there's certainly my calculations change according to my compatibility with the upper force, and they can appear very strange, very peculiar also, relative to those around you. So, Kabbalists know how to conceal it, or they conceal themselves. What does it mean that the person has to constantly anger the good inclination against the evil inclination? And the development, I don't want to get into it. It's enough for now. Let's study. Let's share impressions on the lesson, and what we're taking to implement. What we are taking to realize in the 10. There are many discernments. It starts from us entering the spiritual world. The entire scrutiny is different than anything that exists in this world. We understand that it goes against the natural desire to receive. We learn. We actually receive new qualities that are created in us each time from the study, from incorporation with the spiritual world. And we gradually understand what the Creator wants from us, what it means to be and bestow and giving. How opposite this is from the natural desire to receive of ours, and it works naturally by bitter and sweet. We go according to true and false, spiritually. He gives the definition of truth and falsehood. You can see it. In this two direction where giving is the truth, and into my desire it's called falsehood. And he explained some explanation in the end. Rav explained how giving is considered that I'm always learning what he does to me for me, and accordingly I learn what to do back to him in return. Yes, the Creator created the worlds and inside the world's man, and he gave him like a wallet full of money, let's say, and a person has to decide whether he invests in getting all the worlds, all the equivalents of form qualities of the Creator, or just like a child, depending on the person. We talked about, and this we talked about, it being only in potential, but to know is only through attainment. You can attain spirituality through growing the desire and the correction of its direction. Everything the friend said, we heard Raf's exercises, Raf's explanations, and think you all heard what Raf said, everyone from their angle. But there is still the point is of course in my Vessels I cannot understand if the Creator bestows, and he bestows to me how. From that do I bestow upon him in return. In what mechanism can I bestow to him in return? Let's say he gives me 100 degrees of warmth and pleasantness. Let's say how can I also give him 100 degrees of warmth and pleasantness. These are probably mechanisms that are hard to understand. It was a nice explanation how a person naturally moves from natural form, which is bitter and sweet, how a person operates naturally to truth and falsehood to some calculation that is completely, apparently contradicted to all his corporeal feelings, his thoughts, his desires, and now he moves from here to there. He explained it very clearly and nicely how a process that a person goes through, where he starts putting upon himself kind of new rules and new approach, in which he gradually goes and acquires it. If, of course, this is with the help of the light, but the process a person goes through nevertheless brings forth his desire for this to implement in him. You know, in the spiritual path many times we ask, why do we have this world? And in the lesson Rob explains, there is an upper force, one unique and unified, eternal, and only it exists, and he created and made something that feels him. That thing that feels him is called a vessel, the soul, the created being. And the small impression in this natural, innate impression it has is called this world. And there is a plan for the upper forest towards the vessel it created to make that vessel feel him to the level that is called. What a plan. That's really the wisdom of Kabbalah, is a wisdom that's different to all other wisdoms, because every person checks what's outside of himself, and the wisdom of Kabbalah is the only wisdom where a person changes his inner qualities and then measures them against the externality. The dispute isn't the dispute between those inner forces for my own benefit to the new forces that appear, which is for the benefit of the Creator. We're giving, as I'm giving to him, and he is giving to me. How to acquire this quality? We'll go to the next part of the lesson, and first we'll sing a song. New York, around the world, a ray of light is calling people to unite, igniting all the points inside. And this love will be our guide. Above the place and beyond time, a new humanity will shine. Above the place and beyond time, a new humanity will shine. Chicago, around the world, a ray of light is calling people to unite, igniting all the points inside. And this love will be our guide. Above the place and beyond time, a new humanity will shine. Above the place and beyond time, a new humanity will shine. Around the world, a ray of light is calling people to unite, igniting all the points inside. And this love will be our guide. Above the place and beyond time, a new humanity will shine. Above the place, and we are dying, a new humanite. We will go into a test lesson with Rebage. Before that, we'll watch a clip with Rav that will prepare us for the special relation we should have to the test study. Please, we need to nevertheless, with our intentions, to feel that through this conduit that we're opening during the study, this is a certain kind of a pipe that connects us with the spiritual world, and through this pipe we can bestow upon the spiritual world with our intention. As much as we send intentions to the Creator during the study, to that extent only we will succeed. The more the intentions are connected with the group, the more they're aimed towards the goal. As much as there's our feeling in it, meaning a true prayer, it operates to the efficiency of our appeal, and nothing besides that helps, meaning all the rest of the actions outside of that hour that we're studying. The study obtains all the rest of the actions during the day, the night, and no matter what we do, it is all just so that in this 1 hour we will succeed at coming to this hour with joy, that finally we have an opportunity within the study to enter forcefully truly all the discussions in our heart that we prepared during the time that's outside of the study that we had. It's like a person who's put into the two. The king is brought in to see the king for 1 minute to explain his problem. The king's willing to hear. That's the way our preparation and feeling should be during the study. If we don't work on this together, we won't use the only means. All the rest is the path of suffering. Just this action is considered the path of the where we draw upon ourselves the reforming light. So specifically, our groups overseas, who have amongst them those who don't quite understand yet the study, but are in the study persistently. Great kudos to them, and also those who are in the study but are not quite adhered to it. I see it how they look at us at the screen. Maybe there'll be some kind of explanation, something else. Maybe when will it be over already? Also, they wait for this boring lesson of the stud. I understand all these things, but from this I'm saying we must work on the demand to scrutinize, to clarify the demand that each of us in the group wants each group and all the groups together, and who to turn to and who to address this demand to. And it's worthwhile to talk about this and to correspond about this and nothing else. Nothing besides this benefits us in attaining the goal. We will now learn from a test lesson with Rabash. We read from Test Part 2, Volume 2, Part 5, Item 46. We need to start 46. Yes, 1946. Okay, yes. Afterwards it returned to being not expanding in Keter, and therefore and then it is expanding in and in. What's written here? That there was once more refined, so it's not yet that there's the control of the light of therefore can already illuminate. And before, when it was expanding in Keter, we learned that only illuminate, and then it doesn't expand in. So, sees that Desma ascends and connects to Keman for the benefit of her son, which is, that is in Bener, prior to their being in the degree. So is considered the baby who needs his mother, then it already has in. So from there emerges outwards and illuminates it, and then, when there is, in the degree, then which is the vac, connects to Abba and expanding, and the which inverts her interior from and takes from what remains from her, which is, moves to, so it expands into, and is considered the G, the upper three of the two, and then it doesn't expand in, where vac, which is the to called, connects with. It turns out that which is inverts its interior and receives, so the inversion of interior of its remnants gives it, where is called God of the, if you remember, so not expanding in, which is called vac of. When there is in, then it connects with hood. What does H then have? Not expanding in. It ascends to so what it means that, which was beforehand, now inverts its interior receives. What does it leave behind for? And gives to Malma, and gives life to Mal below in her place. Only the question is what light, and she gives to Mal. We learned that hood gets refined from the coarseness of faith is one, and gives the coarseness to the Shishtu. The root called the light of Malut in, the clear of, and what light comes to. Malut we will see later, and then it is expanding in Malut now. The first phases are complete, which is the reality of the expansion. Thus all 10 lights have reached Malut. He says that when they say expanding in, then there ascends to, meaning that it has, when she has, that is, phase 1, when it has the clear of, when she ascends, what remains from her descends below. What are these remnants in the control of, since she benulled the bener and receives, or phase and receives? Then we learned at divides. In there's V and V the level, which are and, inside, both, and in the. When he says there's a rule that when there is, when the when is there in the what, when is there in the degree, when there's no G, but when there is G in the degree, then the vac of the degree connects to the G of the degree, hence connects with, which is called the inversion of the anterior, where she receives. When she ascends to, what remains we always say is it goes down more than from always it goes down. And what are the remnants? The inversion of anterior, where now it has, and turns out that in it there is, then that connects to, so the remnant what remains of, moves to had, what did now receive, from, so it expands in, then the does not rise by name. Why? Because it connects to the remains of the move to, what now in, before illuminated vac. Now the anterior will illuminate. So I'm asking why I say that when rises to its remains is given to. It's called on the way that we learned. 43, where 43 of was refined, which is not its phase. Then when he cancels its level, it's it. Divs what remains, and what remains. 32 of Toma. 32 that was refined, what remains from it, is to one it gives to Bener. Also we learn that when the leftovers are refined, it gives it to the lower one. Here it's refined, and here it comes, and connects due to the desire of G of listen, and there is included, and to is included if, which is considered losses the face of meaning when it connects with. What remains of it only the 2, so the moves into the lower one, and now the 2 of the lower one, which is. What does it have? Which comes in the that was cancelled, and there's no of what illuminates. What remains in it only the, and since now in, it goes out to what remains the of the anterior. If we say the light of is in the vessel of what light illuminates, in the vessel of Malert, this is how you should ask it. In the cleave of the light of hay, the light that emerged upon the 2 bits, in the cleave of bin, from vac of mill, called vav, from 4, which is called poor and meagre as she says. This is only the record, and both become hate. This hay moved to the cleave of while was still in phase 1, and then, we learned, was refined, where the light of the in phase 1, and remained with a coarseness of root. Here also we learn about what remains. The upper one includes the lower one. What remains the leftover of the orthoeuras of root, these leftovers, this remains, was given to the cleave of it. Turns out in the cleave of there's a light which extends in the cleave of and was refined to coarseness of root, and that light is called by the name din, judgment, and the hay, which comes in and unifies it to grace or mercy. It means from here is not clear sins he received beforehand, and was still in the coarseness of phase 1, corrected it from phase 1, and then, when the coarseness of root comes called the light of, it's considered the mixing of measure of mercy and judgment. And this is where he says above that the A and page 334, he says, although this hay, which was born from Zona, is the beginning of the sharing of the measure of mercy with judgment. What is this intermingling between them, their measure of mercy and judgment? We can see now in the vessel of which is mercy, until she received the H before, and now she received the Deen, the judgment. We'll go over this again. What is the meaning of the what remains of Ger after she connected with gives, also what remains of that connected in her remains she gives to, as he says, I want to interpret it in such a way. We from 43 are included until the including 30 to 1, until it's refined, so in the is included also. When it loses the what remains the so, she gives to the 2, as we say 43 is refined in the cleave ket remains 30 to 32, gives to what remains here too, which is, and controls as far as, now once more and nulls cancels her discernment, her face, and connects to, who to the which illuminates what remains in the 2 goes down into the below to the, and what method do we have? Here now that the anterior is in, so there's, now the view of the, is what did it have before? Now the va connects with the gal of, called, if she cancel the from what remains, only, nevertheless, she will now be with her anterior, so she gives the which is called, where, then, we learned her H, what she went through in with. She gives which prior to being refined to phase 1, and then it means that it corrects the cleave of 2, which comes from phase 1. Al if 1 is called, after that the hood is refined from phase 1 to the courses of root called, the light of Mal called judgment, and this she gives the which was the upper. 1 is refined from phase 1 of coarseness to root. It turns out that also the hay is in courses of root, but prior to that it's considered the sharing between the mercy and judgment. He asks, well, there was an expansion in, and then rises to, and does not remain there, and descends below, certainly in order to beget. And here we say that connects with, and what remains she gave to. There he explains, she descended below with the intention, in order to be refined from 2 to 1, and here there's no refinement, that's the difference there. He says that since he's connecting with, has 2, it also has 2, then she can give to 2, and therefore the sons, when she gives to the sons, she refined from 2 to 1, that's considered a descent. But here, there's nothing. First we need to know that there's no place, only signs, and this he calls this way, and that he calls that way there are no places. Here he wants to say that you need be in order to receive a descent, not to remain in phase 2 that she receives. Oh, Mina receives for what? That's the question comes up. Why does it need to descend for the sons? In another place, it's written that sag for the sons, where the upper one puts himself to death for the sake of the sons. You learned that in part 12 if you remember, but here it's the same phase. He says that this is just a matter of inversion, or the flipping of the anterior. You remember that We heard this, but the inversion of anterior is not considered that there are no places there's no inversion of anterior, also only what there's no control. So what he says is that where controls all the vac are cancelled, and we receive when there's no, then the vessels that have association with vac ascend to there, but in the vessels of God they don't they don't come by name. When I say there's no V, there's no void. There's no I can say that it doesn't expand and it remains in that void, and illuminate the light does not have to do it here. When I say that it doesn't expand in Keter, it expands, and we should say that 43 that was refined to 32. That's in Keter that was given to, and I must say that there is no such thing. That would come by name. He's right there. We learn that by inverting the anterior is what was the most important for him. Before 2 of coarseness inverts anterior to phase 1 of coarseness, and there's the inversion of anterior from the light of or vice versa. From here we learn from he says there's nothing here, only the inversion of anterior from, but as far as there's 101 coarseness he says we need to study. Again 46. We'll move to the next part of the lesson then. Mother sh me seek. We will now learn from a conversation titled Answering the Courtship of the Creator from. Sometimes he comes to such a great descent that he has thoughts of escaping Torah commandments, meaning thoughts come to a person that he has no desire to be in the domain of holiness. In that state, one should believe that it is to the contrary, meaning that it is a kasher that runs away from him. The reason is that when one wants to blemish the kasher moves forward and runs away from him first. If one believes this and overcomes during the escape, then escape in Hebrew becomes bless, as it is written, bless the Lord his strength, and accept the work of his hands. This means that if we don't always push ourselves towards connection in increasing conditions, that there has to be greater and greater connection between us and the Creator, and the intention more and more powerful towards, in order to bestow to him contentment. Then we feel, as a result of our laziness, the lack of effort, that the Creator is leaving us, and then we have to accept his distancing as an invitation, as a flirt, that he's inviting us to get closer to him. If we understand that, ready for that, and run towards him, and accept this game, me for my beloved and my beloved for me, that if I'm for the Creator, then the Creator is for me, and sometimes he relates to me by showing an additional deficiency, so we're always in such a tango in a dance. If I don't accept these things, don't understand them, then the Creator distances in such a way that he leaves me, meaning he doesn't stimulate me to be drawn after him, disappears, and then again I have to restart the work where I am reminded of that, and by the group and by my efforts of all kinds, and then until once again I'm meaning it's really up to us to be always conscious, in dialogue, in coexistence, connection between us and the Creator on our part. We have to always discover deficiencies, and on top of the deficiencies, to try towards a new connection. We need it. Like for instance, if we have a nice good food in front of us, and we want to feel all kinds of flavors in it, and there are thousands and thousands of flavors in the food, that's how we have to work with the Creator, to discover the constantly increasing yearning, and if not, then he begins to awaken us first in a gentle way, and then just leaves us if we don't awaken, leaves us completely until we begin to awaken, and that this is it. We're going to move to the next part of this study between friends. Dear friends, we're moving now to study between friends led by the 10PT5. Please, okay, shalom, okay, hello, friends, how are you? We are very happy to talk to you about the preparation for the coming Congress, and in our 10, we have made a lot of trips, and after a while, we began to kind of give it a word. It's a word that doesn't really exist in Hebrew, but because of my somewhat American background, it's a word from the US called retreat. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. So that the interpretation of retreat means to retreat, but if you linger on it for a second, you see that it's actually a very good word to describe what happens when we go on a trip together. We retreat from this life. We retreat from the corporeal life, work, the will to receive, all the distraction, all the noise, and you come together with the 10. It's exactly what happens when you do this action. Even those who do it virtually, I'm speaking to the friends in the world, it is still a very unique action because in this action, you start building something new in the tent. So in PT5 we go on retreat for many years actually, and it was a direct continuation and natural continuation of the physical meetings that we also have every Shabbat between us. At some point we understood that this work together creates new conditions for connection. In the last retreat we had, which was before the last Congress we had here, we went for 3 days, even though we before that we tried half a day and 2 days, and then we went for 3 days, and it was certainly an event we've been preparing for a while, and we divided the content blocks to pairs, worked on the whole schedule, and even though it's already kind of natural for us, we have a feeling of what each friend is strong with and who naturally knows how to move things, organize the schedule, shopping, things like that. At the end of the day, we make sure that every time we go on a retreat, all the friends are an integral part of the whole story. It's never a work of one man or one team, and today we want to focus on one spiritual principle which actually lies at the basis of success in the retreat. We saw that it's repeating again and again. We'll talk about it today, and this at the end of this session, we want every 10 to it can do it. It doesn't matter what it is. You can organize a retreat for your 10. We want to give you confidence, inspiration, some positive envy to infect you with it. It doesn't need to look like what we do. It needs to be your retreat. You're doing it. You're retreating from the corporeal reality and discover a spiritual reality in the 10, and it's possible. Hello friends. So we tried to think what we from our experience can pass along, whether it's technical details of how to arrange things in advance, how to arrange the content, or is it more a matter of impressions and spiritual benefits. After we did a few rounds between us, we understood that what we want to do is to share around this concept of the element of concession and giving up on something in our 10. First of all, each has his preferences. There's a person who likes long trips into nature somewhere. There's a person who wants to not leave the neighborhood and stay in city. There's one who likes silence all 3 days. The other just wants to talk all the time. One wants to learn more test, and the other wants just to sing songs. With all these tendencies, these inclinations, each of us has his wife and his children at home. One his wife's on the path, one his wife is not. One can go out from work on this day, and the other one can take a vacation on that day, meaning there's so many parameters that need to be taken into account. First of all, so we can technically bring all the people together to one moment of being together. And then there's so many more elements. As we're doing this, one wants vegetarian, one's with meat. In short, we're trying first of all to hear everyone, to include everyone, to contain everyone, and try to make this congress between us to really answer all the needs of everyone. With everything I described, with all those parameters, it's clear that it's impossible. It's truly impossible to be able to give everyone's needs and fulfill everyone's desires. And this is the element we have to give up and nullify and agree with what the friend's giving. And the thing is that it's not like this political thing that we have to get to. It's an equal place. We rather see how the Creator stands behind the scenes and on purpose. He's not enabling this to happen, and then he doesn't allow this to happen. It doesn't, and only when we start to give up and to give up and to give up, then we see how much the Creator is managing us and is playing with us. And specifically thanks to these concessions, that's where we feel how the connection between us is a spiritual one. And when we do this, we shouldn't forget that it's important to take everyone into consideration. But bottom line, what we're trying to attain is not some weekend where we'll come back with beautiful pictures from, but rather the whole element here is that we will have to demand the Creator into the connection between us, and the Creator appears specifically from these concessions. We want to see a clip from Raft to truly listen to every word he says, how precise he is, where the concession is, where our benefit in this congress sits. The whole success of this Congress is on this clip, please. You said that we also rise to this place of the spiritual bubble, the womb, filled with the feeling of the Creator, only when the ten connects and annals itself. So to whom does the ten enlify itself? The ten annals itself before every egoistic desire that can separate between them, and between them there's at least something common, and it's upon this commonality that they cannot give up. They cannot give up that's it. They must be adhered together. Take everything from me except for that point of adhesion. That already adheres them together. And then to that same degree of adhesion on that same point, not them themselves, but rather in that point of adherence, that concession they made, the concession they had towards everyone enters into the womb, because it is an equivalence of form with the womb, with the Creator, with the degree of being, and then it starts to develop there. Try to make this tangible to the extent in which this must be something that is only between one and the other in this way, that to disconnect from this I'm not capable. You kill me, but I'm not capable, because this is my spiritual life. They need to be above my corporeal life. Only one point. We're going to go over all these things. These are very sensitive things, very special, and you will enjoy discovering them, and how the Creator prepares for us His world, which is all feeling and intellect. Shalom. Hello friends. I want to share with you an experience that I myself went through in our retreat. First of all, it's very important, the matter of annulment, and annulment before the collective desire of the 10. Some friends naturally are good with project management or can organize a meal or other things. But to me, it gives a lot of confidence in order to do something new in our retreat. I never prepared a lesson for the 10 or really worked with the material in a formal sense. And I was preparing this dinner, me and Yuri, and we used the content and put together the whole meal, and during that I gave a gift to the friends. I always wanted to sing a song for the friends. I'm not good at that, but I did it, and I really like Reiki, and I did something a little bit too long, but what did I want to say? That I opened my heart, and I wanted to bestow to the friends, give them a good feeling. And it doesn't matter that whether my song was successful or not, I conveyed and found something new in me and conveyed it, and I think that the friends felt it. It doesn't matter the success of the action. What's most important is the intention, the emotion that you're putting into the action. It's the labor, it's the participation, it's to retreat, support to the whole issue of the retreat. That's what determines it. So I want to encourage you to try and do some roles that are maybe not that comfortable, but it can really bring joy to the friends, and there's confidence. There's confidence in my 10 PT5. It gives you confidence that is really infinite to do things whether it succeeds or not doesn't matter. It comes to our mutual plate of connection, and that's what determines it. Friends, yes, it's very inspiring to think now that the whole world, all the friends in the world, all the 10s are all convening for this search for scrutiny of how are we connecting what's right for our 10, how will we truly reach the quality of bestow together. And this process of preparation, this process of reaching agreement is very complex, and it demands from us to need and demand the Creator, to without which we won't succeed. We saw that there's truly a certain obviousness of the heart, and each thinks that this is how it should be, and that's how it should look, and what awakens and evokes an impression, and each pulls in some direction, and to actually create some state of the openness of the heart is what's demanded of us. We had a case where I, for example, really connect to Rabash, to all the social writings. I think that's what we should engage in, and the 10 Congress needs to be engaged in that. And every time we started with such lessons, suddenly some friend comes and says, no, I want to give the test, and another friend says, no, I think we should do a lesson on dissemination. And there was a case where a friend came and said, wait a minute, instead of the lesson, I have something that's sitting on my heart that I want us to open up and talk about. And there's this constant thoughts with yourself. Is this purposeful or not? Is it right or not? Is this time for this or not? This whole thing has to be thrown aside and to really see behind the action that the friend wants to bring the gift to the friend to bring his longing the way that he is connected to the Creator. This pipe that he has towards the Creator he brings to. Through the tea the moment we all nullify, the great magic is created. We know I'm now ignited this decision we did before our last retreat, that there was this mutual agreement that the retreat becomes no less important than the Congress, and it was really felt on the flesh suddenly when it took such an importance between us. There was the power to do anything, and all the external disturbances just fell and everyone found themselves there. It was really powerful, because many times Raf says that everything we can attain today is only in the 10, and it became something like, typically when we do these retreats, when we go out only with the 10, it kind of resists, and doesn't really sit with necessarily with the schedule of the whole society or things at home and so on. And since then, it's really like this matter of the Congress became revealed to us that now we have all the support of all the society, of all of the organisation now. We're going into these 3 days of support for this, that you can go with your 10 and use that time like that. Another thing I wanted to bring up is that we heard a lot about the planning. We were also really working on planning meticulously, and we know that Kabbalists don't like spontaneity. We heard that many times, but we also saw with over the years that some examples from Rav where some things could be flexible even though we don't like spontaneity. There is a matter of flexibility, and if a certain deficiency arises, some emotion, or like we saw in congresses before in the past, suddenly, let's say Rav says we need more joy, and then we change our minds and we try to make a shift in direction, or we lack prayer or something like that. So we also had such beautiful examples in the retreats as well. A friend who invested a lot of effort to prepare some lesson for on dissemination, and in that moment just threw it all away, and because of the openness of the heart, because of the melting of the borders between us and a state that really feels like one man in one heart, but it becomes revealed. He just opened his heart and explained about something that's happening with him and in relation to the society, and then it just felt like a prayer that erupted, and everyone felt these powerful things that can only happen when we are gathering together and do all the efforts, and then all of a sudden in a moment something flips and changes, and it's beautiful. And I'm very happy that now all the 10s have the opportunity to go through that. Yes, in the retreat, in the Congress, in this retreat I prepared a lesson, so also when I sat and was preparing it, I remember starting to prepare it. I had something in my mind, and I started to write down the lineup and bring the materials. And while you're doing that, you're starting to think about, you're starting to see the faces of everyone in the 10. We know each other well, how each will respond. What will he think? What will be? While you're doing that, you're starting to see that also when you're preparing a lesson even, you need to actually cancel everything that appears to you, everything you think. And I kind of sat, and I thought it would take 2 hours, 3 hours to prepare this lesson. It took me 2 days. And everything felt just not whole. I was always in this fear, and you gradually give up everything that you feel, and just see the friends and all the material, the whole materials and sources from Islam, etc. is just so it will enter more and come to do good for the friends. A completely different lesson came out of it. That's another example of a concession, another thing. Now I wasn't supposed to speak so much, just to ask a workshop question, but I grabbed the microphone. But then this American Leo's retreat word right after what Marco said, there was some friend that opened his heart in a special way. Suddenly there was some moment after all the efforts, and each really put forth labour, meaning it the openness sat on this and this exertion, and each invested, and so it's even hard to make a concession. I put so much into it, and so hard for me to give up, and they're on top of that to also clothe the concession, the annulment. And there, in that moment, there was this moment where we really felt like a very special connection, and some friend expressed it and said we must make this retreat into our Brit treat. like a convention treat, and then we changed it. We called it a convent, a retreat for reaching something in spirituality, no less than that. We really felt it on our flesh. Everything you see, hearing here it's that come from that feeling thanks to this process. And after all this talking, we'll let talk 1 second before talking to 30 seconds. Let's take 30 seconds of silence. Each of us now within him is going to scrutinize what is happening now in my 10 as we're approaching the Congress, towards which I need to email myself. Each friend can kind of imagine his stand really good and feel it and think what he needs to nullify now so that his convention of his 10 will succeed. Okay. Now we'll do an active workshop toward what do I need to email myself in the 10 so that the Congress will succeed. Again, an active workshop. For what do I need to email in myself in the 10 so that the Congress will succeed? Probably everything. I've actually said beautifully in the clip that the person needs to email any egoistic desire that separates. The egoistic desire always separates. Sometimes it also causes us connection, however, but we want the main thing from all our actions to be the feeling of our connection, and I need to null before my poor Hebrew here. How can I show my love to my friends in the Congress without words? That's my question, and maybe I will bake bread again. The word poor is actually not a poor word. It's a very deep word. I need to. I think nullification is an active thing, and we always have to search for heart to nullify so that in the 10, something will come from that annulment, meaning the annulment drives to the connection in the 10 towards bestow. So to look for this mutual cause of connection where you need to nullify so that your annulment will drive the force of bestowing in the 10. It's a search. It needs to be always active. It's not just an action of, by the way. Yes, we have to seek after that the annulment of the opinion, the spirit of the 10. Search for it where it is what it is. Just like the question we just had now. We should think about this. What is our state here in the 10 now? And where am I in relation to him? Do it. Mostly what I need to nullify is my stance, my opinion, my righteousness, the fact that I think that how things have to be done and what, and to see how in place of that actually bring forth more connection in the 10 and the general spirit that's moving forward together. In our 10, I think we need to nullify laziness, indifference, situation where everything seems fine, everything will flow slowly. It's very difficult to know if unless we have a very exalted and high goal that we're constantly raising up, if the goal will be for before our eyes all the time and we remind each other of it and talk about it, we will be able to nullify it. To add maybe one thing, we don't yet have a Congress. We need the Creator to help us build it so that it'll be truly the creation of the Creator. So we have to allow Him to enter everything, and to everyone has his own picture of the Congress. Should be this, should be that. We can take 4 steps backwards and let something form, as PT5 just did. We did that as well. We discussed, and then suddenly something came up, and so the something of ours needs to come out after many discussions and mutual thoughts, and with God's help. Okay friends, now we want, after all the words, show a clip right now that will summarize the last Congress, the last retreat we did. For your convenience, we packaged the clip with subtitles, headings that you headline so you can see all the elements that are in the Congress, like content and meal and all kinds of other things, and how they appear during this occurrence itself. And from this clip you can summarize most of our experience from the Congress altogether. By the way, media is something very beneficial and it's worthwhile to use, even if you're not professionals. Simply take film, take photos, take video. They can use technologies that can connect it, and you can use it to evoke records and renew the love and the covenant with those moments where the camera knows to capture this warm field of love between us. Let's see the clip, and then you're invited if you have understandings or questions or sharing from the clip or from altogether what we said. Then we're here, please, for the path, the way we can plan their drive, but leave some room for surprise. This is exactly the moment. Here we go. Here we go. In you I shall be free. PT5 retreat. Absorption. How do I serve the friend in the most accurate, best way? Lessons with friends. Every friend is a wash. Every friend is a heel. Understand how opposite we are from the creator, from the emanator. I don't have the words really. No words. Just the giant connection between us. Feel what writes that there is nothing but the friends, congregation, the circle between exists. Every moment, even when we're walking separately. Physical exercise together is wonderful. And you don't even have to go out to nature for that. Free movement allow the friends to move between them like particles in a single atom. I once heard Raf saying that even if we're mistaken, it's better to make a mistake together. And then if the 10 decides about something, then we do it. One of the things that I think that you came through in the clip, I hope enough, is that this whole annulment we talked about earlier creates great joy and love. Really like between in a relationship when I don't want to talk about relationships here, but in the end, all these concessions truly cause great love, and mostly this is what we had. We came out of this Congress of 3 days with immense love and commitment, much greater commitment towards each other than we entered it, and that's it. We don't need anything more than that. I want to say that, well, you know what can you say about the professionalism? We see that it's a great envy, but we don't have that kind of, but what I want to say is in every shot, and I noticed in every shot there's such love towards the friend that, what can you say? It's a much better than any Hollywood movie. Why? Because there's really the attitude of love toward the friend. That's just beyond words. I'm not talking about the movie. I am talking about the people, the friends who came together and united and show us an example of how we should really relate to this whole Congress to really go into it full force. That's where we want to be. That's where we discover the creator. That's what we're going for full force. Thank you, friends. Thank you for giving us a lot of power to do it well in this Congress. Friends, I just want to give one very important point. We're going to a Congress of 810s. In spirituality, there's no PT5. There's no pi this or that group or another. Our power now is way beyond the imagination of every friend here. Just remember that this is simply an opportunity for a fuel station of joy in every tent. Each and everyone can do this. It doesn't matter who the components are in your tent. The Creator arranged for us this group and this opportunity that we've never had such an opportunity. We never had such a Congress. Take it with both your hands. Give confidence, the strength to friends. This is our opportunity. And moving on to duty. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to help. If there's also some need for some technical webinar, we'll be happy to help with that.